Hello, it's Cam. Welcome back to This Might Be Helpful. I am sincerely stoked that you are here. Today's episode is brought to you by the This Might Be Helpful community. If you enjoy what I do here and you would like to engage with more of this content and take an active role in its co-creation within a community of expansive, curious, like-minded people, then come on by to the This Might Be Helpful community and vibe out. We got live streams, bonus podcasts, extra content, Q&As, member discussions, and a whole bunch more. So come over, say hi, make yourself known. Without further ado, let's dive in. Where are you at, man?
I'm in Wyoming. I'm in Sheridan.
All right, cool. I'm from Montana originally.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I heard you're from Cody.
I was born in Cody and raised in Red Lodge.
Yeah. Your family's got a rafting company.
Yeah, dude. I saw Drew in your stories yesterday. I grew up listening to that thing.
Dude, it's wild, man. I started following you maybe a month ago, I think. And I saw a reel that you posted and I was like, oh, I could use more of this. This is great. And followed you. And then a couple weeks later, got a message and was like, do you want to be on the podcast? And I was like, hang on, is this that guy who's like, there was this reel. It was like, you were talking about Pineens.
Yeah.
That's
dude.
Great. And I was like, this is crazy. And then I was like, hey, Drew, have you heard of this guy? He's like, that guy's great. Yeah, I was like, I love his dad, and he's great. Yeah. And I was like, wow. Yeah, I guess we better do this, huh?
Yeah, man. The synchronicities, I'm leaning into whatever synchronicities emerge as not, oh, what a coincidence, but oh, okay, here's an obvious thing that the universe is pointing me in the direction of. So lean into all of that, whatever it might be. And then, coming across your stuff, I resonated because of motorcycles and photography and adventure and go fast, don't die.
Yeah.
It all just hit home. And I'm so used to, especially on this podcast, we talk about a lot of things, but I really grew up in that, realm, and it's not something that's talked about as much on the pod. I talk about lots of esoteric stuff and Buddhism and psychology, but it's but also go fast and don't die. Do dangerous things safely. Get outside, take photos, explore, get dirty, have fun. That is really the foundation of a zesty life.
Yeah, man. It's really interesting because the brand, people kind of pick up on this motorcycle stuff, and then when they actually start really paying attention, it's we don't really talk about motorcycles ever, we're into motorcycles, but motorcycles are just the vehicle for, making a great story for your life. And so I love it, man. We got, so when I met Drew, meeting Drew was super funny, but I got him a motorcycle. So we had a bike here and I was like, hey, I had to buy this bike because it was a bike that I borrowed and crashed. And so I just bought it, and I brought it back. I was like, hey, there's a bike, I'll make you a great deal on it. We'll paint it for you. So we painted his Satsang logo on it and everything. And now he's he's sucked into the thing, but it's just, the brand, the whole idea of go fast, don't die is find your edge, and dance on it. That's where life is lived. It's not, it really has nothing. We have a shirt that says speed is a number, fast is a feeling, because we used to, we'd put ads out there and people are like, you guys aren't going fast. You're on this bike and that bike, those bikes aren't fast. And, there's a whole story behind all the designs. There's a whole story behind that, but tell me, I would love to hear more about, I tried to do a little bit of research, I was like, okay, I love you. I love what you're doing. And then hearing that you were from Cody and in Montana, I was like, this is my guy, dude. I don't know who this guy is, but I got to get to know this cat. And And yeah, so it was just, it was Providence, and it was cool. But I would love to, I tried to do a little bit of research, like this might be helpful. I assume the podcast, the idea here is providing something that people might find of use.
Yeah, man. I think that it's deliberately titled in that kind of vague and nebulous way, because whether it is helpful or not depends on whether people are listening.
Of course.
Like anything can be helpful. And yeah, it's like, part of it is just, facilitating that open space for conversation, because often I'll get to an end of an episode and I don't know what I've said. And, people go like, that was really helpful. Hell yeah, I'm stoked to hear that, because it would have been whatever I needed in that moment as well. Because, I'm only ever speaking about things that are inhabiting this state of consciousness, whatever it is, when I hit that record button. And most of them have been solo. So I'm only just now kind of starting to branch out and do more guests, because I just lacked the organization initially. Like it's hard enough to just get me up into the mic. And so, but now it's funny because, the guests that I have on, it's like whoever I find interesting, like whatever comes across this space. And I'm like, well, that looks like a total vibe. I'd love to talk about that. And just every time it's been right. There are things that the algorithms say you should do, and like, all right, you should be collaborating with people with, these numbers and doing that. I'm like, yeah, but I don't care about that.
Yeah, man. And I feel like that's what's so, it's so tough actually, man. It's tough to be like, okay, I've got a purpose. I've got something that is meaningful to me, and I'd like to bring it to the world. And then the world will say, okay, great, bring it in. Just chop that off over there and move this over here, and then come on forward. And what ends up happening is that you go, oh, okay, okay, do your makeup, whatever. And if by the time you get it to the world, it's not the thing you meant to bring, you know what I mean? Or it's like some version of the thing that you meant to bring that's like diluted. We have too much of that.
Yeah.
So actually, like true connection and just actually talking about stuff that actually matters. And sometimes it's actually difficult, I think, because, you talk about social media and you're going, should I even share this? Is this even for anyone else? Here's a beautiful sunrise in front of me. Here's a beautiful experience in front of me. Is it diminished? I was just in Rapid City in South Dakota, and I went to the Crazy Horse Memorial. And Crazy Horse believed, there are no pictures of Crazy Horse, because he believed that every time he got a photo taken of him, it took some of his soul. The irony of he's definitely the most photographed native ever now is hilarious. But, I was just thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's beautiful what you do. I think it's really, really cool. And I think the way you put together, I told Drew, I was like, man, this guy is he's like an AI, like just the way he speaks, he's so eloquently, and he just puts these things together. I'm like, he's like a bot that just says the right things every time. You know what I mean? Even the way you take your breaths, your pauses. I'm like, this guy's just poetry in motion. I don't know how it's going to go to talk about it, because I just talk like a guy, and he's very eloquent.
Yeah, but dude, that's like, we're also seeing those moments of, like I got 30 seconds to fill, and I can bring, 30 seconds of clarity, but who knows how much confusion and stuttering and stumbling went into that 30 seconds of clarity. Like,
sure,
I'm not going to share stuttering through.
Of course.
Of course. You get that little moment, and it's interesting as well, like just how easily we paint a picture of someone and fill in the gaps. And I know, looking at my profile, they would think, oh, this guy's organized. Maybe he seems like he's got things figured out, and to an extent, there are things that work for sure. But when I say those things, it's because I'm saying them to myself. It's like, hey,
of course, man,
you got to be okay with uncertainty, because I'm uncertain. Like, hey, man, you got to learn how to regulate, because I need to regulate.
Of course,
you got to go and, the difference between confidence and readiness, because I'm working up to be ready for something. And I think that's why it's meaningful. It's like all the time people go, oh, I can't believe this message came across me. How did you know? It's like, I didn't. I just know how I felt. And
no, the way I knew is because I'm in this lived experience with you. I'm in mine. I'm driving mine, like we're right next to each other. You're driving your race car. I'm driving mine. We got a mic on. I'm going, did you see that turn?
Yeah.
And then, I think there's a responsibility. I think there's a beauty in walking up a trail or walking down a trail and then being able to report back like, hey, when you get to this spot, you're going to see this plant and you're going to want to go left. Trust me, dude, I went left. You do not want to go that way, right? There's poison ivy everywhere. Do not do that. So you're going to want to go right, and then you're going to want to stay to the right of the trail because you'll brush up on the slope. Anyway, that's all. Love you too, bud. Right?
Yeah.
We do that in life, and then someone's like, I can't believe you knew that there was poison ivy. Like I would have run into that poison ivy, or they ran into the poison ivy, and they're like, yes, dude. Thank you for saying that because someone needed to say it.
Mm-hmm. I got a mad itch, and I was hoping I wasn't alone in that.
Yeah, right.
We're the collective guide, right? And it's like there's so much of the, that collective wisdom and that collective guide that we can tune into, and it's like, what do we need for that? Well, we need to be open to the notion that everybody here is a teacher. It's like we want to feel seen, we want to feel heard, we want to feel validated, but we also got to make our own mistakes. And that's the other side of it. We can listen to all the guides and signposts on the trail that we want, but you also got to listen to that voice that goes, oh, you should go left.
Yeah.
Like, I know they told me not to, but I don't know if they're living the life that I want to live. So I think I have to go left. I'm not picking the same trail as that person.
That's the wild thing, man, is sometimes you just gotta try it. Like, I think otherwise nothing would ever be explored. Nothing would ever be discovered. You know what I mean? You'd never bring something up, and what is right for one person is not right for another person, and even if it is the right thing for another person, it might not be the right time for that right thing for that person. So it's just encouraging people in their curiosity, to go fast and not die. Death. We've got a page on our site that says what don't die means to us. Because it's actually, for me, it's super deep. Most people who wear our stuff, they're like, badass, go fast, don't die. I ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, cool. I love that for you. You're on the path, because when I got on a motorcycle is when I really started learning all these things, because you're sitting there in this meditative state, and I'm super ADHD. Like my brain's all over the place all of the time until it finds something, and then it's locked until it's out, But when my hands are busy and the white lines are flying, and my seat, I'm planted. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going somewhere, but not going anywhere. And I'm being entertained by this constantly changing landscape and this whole story that's being told as I'm riding through it and interacting with it. I'm in the wind. I'm in the, if there's a bird, I've hit birds, I'm like, I'm the end of that bird's story now, I wonder what it did before me. But I have these, you get into these meditative states where you're like, I wonder if this, and you start thinking through that. And it's like one of the only places where I find peace. I find, time. I actually am in time. I'm actually there to start processing this thing. And I'll take a topic, I'll take something that I'm thinking through, and I'll put it on the boiler. And if I'm on the bike, hands are busy and my eyes are being entertained and my mind is being, being sung to by the world. I start thinking through this thing. So anyway, I was saying we have this thing is what don't die means to us. And it's a poem. I'll send it to you. But anyway, it's a lot more than just like, it's small death, it's the deaths we have in every day. It's the death of waking up and jumping on some nonsense, instead of jumping on the thing that serves you.
Yes, dude. I mean, we are granted with that choice in most moments, and every day is like, do I choose growth or death?
Yeah.
Like, is it aversion or ascension? Like, I could stay in bed and I could be averse to the idea of getting up and making my way, or I can ascend that discomfort and I can go for it. And that there's a feedback loop with all of it, right? And continuing to choose the tiny death that creates this feedback loop of death. And it's the death of perspective. It's the death of curiosity. It's the death of passion and intuition and
hope.
And hope.
Right? Because you used your time, and the more time the less time you have, the less hope you're going to have, because there's not time to, when you start a day, you're like, you start a day, you're like, okay, I got all day to do this thing. But if you get to the night and you haven't done that thing, your hope in doing it is diminished. And if you have no hope, you have no faith, and you don't, dude.
The feedback loop from that. Yeah, man. Yeah. Like the feedback loop of that. I mean, I just think about yesterday where I had a whole bunch of things and I was like, all right, you got all day. I hit 4 p.m. and rarely do I do like quality work after 4 p.m. Not conventional work. I might, be creative and be excited about something, but it's not, I've just misaligned what I was supposed to be doing. And the hope runs out. And then when that hope kind of runs out, it kind of alchemizes into something else. So like, dang it, that hope turned to stress. That hope turned to anxiety. And it's like, it's the opposite of hope. It's more dread. Yeah. Like there's we are so goddamn finite, but we got a mind that can go forever. And so it's like, we're in that dance as well. That's this razor's edge of like, all right, by default, I will miss out on almost everything in life because there's too much of everything for this finite body to get into. So it's like recognizing that fear of missing out is actually justified because you'll miss out on everything. So using that instead of being demoralized by that, like, all right, well, that means I don't have to worry about everything that I'm going to be missing. I can do the things that I want to be doing.
You don't actually have a choice. That's what's nice. Some miserable guy in history called Soren Kierkegaard said, you'll regret it either way. Get married, don't get married, you'll regret it either way. And this dude is just, his story is a pretty awful one. But I read that and I was like, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. So like, whatever I do, whatever I choose, like I'm going to regret it either way. It doesn't matter which way I go. And it was like, I think people reading that are like, oh, that's awful. And I'm like, oh, that's great.
How liberating.
This is great because whichever way, Drew and I are actually talking about that last night. So Drew got his brown belt last night.
Congratulations, Drew.
Do you, like on this podcast, the audience, is it like, what do they like? What are these people listening?
I'm still discovering that. I just started speaking into existence, whatever was in my head. And so my head's pretty diverse. I think there's a pretty diverse group of people listening.
Yeah. Well,
I might be helpful. Yeah. It's people that are, I think, overarching, it's the ones that are questioning and, being like, okay, hang on. Life can be more than what we've been told by convention. How can we actually enable that? Almost all of them are ADHD, multi-passionate, diversely interested, easily enthused, but potentially, battling with the double-sided blade that is that.
Yeah. Life's a big pot of coffee and nothing to do sometimes. Yeah, I think that it's so cool because, I'll never say no to a podcast, right? Because, and I think that's when I go on a podcast, sometimes I go on and like, okay, they're like, all right, here's what we do. This is kind of our thing. So here's what we're trying to nail. And this is kind of the thing. With you, we just got on here and started chatting, So I have this thing where I'm like, are we just chatting? Because the reason I always say yes to a podcast is because it's so rare. And this is what's such a bummer. It's so rare that we do this. You know, we're doing a podcast, which is almost like justification for sitting down and having an interesting conversation and walking through these things, walking through each other's garden and like, well, here's this plant that I planted and here's why, and here's that thing. And
the podcast has given me a real, it's amazing because it's given me it has given me the justification to like spend my weeks just having beautiful conversations. And so
yeah.
Like if I was working some regular 9 to 5, I'm like, I wouldn't have the time. I wouldn't have the capacity to just like, hey man, you want to talk for an hour? You want to hang out? It's like, yeah, but I got to work. I got to do things. Whereas like, it's really given this opportunity. It's created the space for these conversations to emerge. And then, we have conversations on here that I think I've failed to recognize this because obviously I'm living my own little life, that people don't have conversations like this. Like people don't have people in their lives where they can really like explore these things and have, go into these deep concepts. They might have people in their life, but it's to be able to just tune in to, an exploratory conversation that's just done for the sake of itself. Like there's no money associated with this podcast. There's no, I'm not doing anything with it other than what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, somebody should just just give you money for it.
I know.
I'll send you some money. So I think about this to anybody who's listening, Cameron and I have a mutual friend, Drew, who has a band called Satsang. And what's so cool in this, you were talking about, these synchronicities. And what's so cool, and another synchronicity in all this whole thing is Satsang. The word is to sit in wisdom, to sit in exchange, and I almost never do that. I mean, so we go do camp outs and these events and that kind of thing. And we sit around a campfire, and I'll say, hey, so what's meaningful? And somebody like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what's meaningful to you? What, and they're like, whoa, just straight into the deep end. Right. And it's like, well, what else are we going to talk about here? Like, what do you do for a job? And people get stuck in that. And I think people get stuck in that because people get stuck in that. Just like what we're saying is, all of these things, these small deaths, right? Depression is a master at self-preservation. It goes, I got in here. I live here now. I need to stay. And let me tell you what would not be good for me is if they wake up early and go check out the sunlight and get some sun in their eyes and get some exercise. That will not be good for me. They'll start kicking me out immediately. Right. What'd be good for me though, is if they check out their phone, specifically if they check out somebody who they wish they were and they know they can't be. So I'm going to promote that. And then they do more of that. Like, ooh, this is good. Right. And they need to eat some shit that's going to just be trash for them. Right. And I want to make sure they don't drink too much water, because this body that I'm in, I like it grimy. I don't need it clean. I don't need the place clean. You start cleaning this place up, I'm going to start leaving. Right. And so it's this, I think of depression as this, which is something I'm so familiar with, but I'm like, you are a master of self-preservation. You get in here and you start convincing me, you start whispering your lies and I start listening to them, it's just one more tomorrow, all these things. And those conversations where people get into conversations and they hear people and they say, oh, they're talking about what they do for work. Oh, they're talking about, how pissed off they are because they were treated unfairly. They're talking about this or that and this or that. When they hear people in satsang, in this place of wisdom, even what you're listening to, what you put in is what will start coming out, I think it's really cool. And I think that podcasts are like, it's just this cool thing because you're hearing people who are having conversations that are meaningful. And then you're in that conversation. These people that are listening, they're not sitting here talking with us, but they're sitting here with us at this point, right? And so they're going, oh, this is how I would like to have conversations. And I have a good example. And then they go to their job and they stand next to, Luke over there and they go, Luke, what is meaningful? And Luke's like, what has gotten into you, man?
Somebody asking questions over there.
Are you eating mushrooms, Luke? What's going on, man? You're on drugs.
That's it, right? Like you to ask questions, real questions. That is this great joy because Ram Dass spoke about the type of work, the type of inner work that is subtle and quiet and kind of independent, but makes it so that when people speak to you, they're like, "What is it about this person? Why do they seem to be like processing this well, and I'm not? Why do they seem to be having fun, and I'm not? Why do they seem to be like they're having such a rich experience, and I'm not?" And they're asking the questions, and it's like, yes, can't give you no answers, but if we can give you an opportunity to ask those questions, like, damn, could I have these kind of conversations in my life? Where would I find these people? Where would I find people that are excited to be alive, that recognize that this is a gift, that this is a temporary transition into wakefulness, and I'll be asleep forever at some point? Like, I think I might join a club. I think I might go to this Buddhist temple and listen to a monk talk. Like, there are Buddhist temples everywhere. You can literally just go sit and listen to people spit bars of wisdom. And you get to sit in that space of satsang, and really you are the sum of it all. And when you place yourself in the context of wisdom and you place yourself in that new garden, you get to cross-pollinate, and then you get to take that pollen and drop pollen somewhere else. And that is this beautiful collective networking gift that now we can scale to infinite global proportions by just like holding the microphone in front of our face.
And save the world.
Build a legacy.
Yeah, man. You were just in Bali, right? Did you just come back from Bali?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. Epic, man. It was so nice. Like going to a place like Bali, it helps to fracture worldview a little bit. It breaks things open, and it's such a wild and dynamic and fluid place that bringing that back into your day to day is really important. Because I think about I was there, and it was really easy for me to tune out and just be really present. I didn't check anything. I didn't look at anything work related. I was just completely disconnected, and ultimately so deeply connected to just what was around me. And that, it's also like I was only there for like 8 days, but there's so much stimuli, so much color and smell and sound and just chaos that like all my neurons were like soaking it in. And that kind of disruption and chaos was ultimately the most restorative thing about it. That the monotony is what makes my neurons just atrophy. They get quiet and hungry and comfortable.
And Bali's such a place of you can't look anywhere and sort of not be positively stimulated. Every direction you look, and whether you're out in the rice fields, or you're at the beach, or you're go to an island, or you're down, like you're at a coffee shop, you're going to be looking and you're going to be just positively stimulated. Like we started this thing called Moto Retreat because we Go Fast Don't Die was Go Fast Don't Die, and it was doing its thing and getting big, and we're like, this is cool. We love that people want to wear this clothing and represent this brand, but to really understand what this brand is, they would need to they need to be part of some community. They need to understand that like this is about what began this was the pursuit of a better story and meeting other people who were in pursuit of a better story, though maybe they didn't have the tools to like even realize that that's what they were looking for, but they were looking. They're out on a motorcycle and well, what are you doing out here? But life is full of opportunities for people to go, hey, me too. and motorcycles was just the one that spoke to us. Right. And so we're like, why do you ride a motorcycle? Well, you're looking for a better story, of course. Right. Like you're not trying to punish. Hopefully you're not trying to punish yourself with this motorcycle. And if you are, you're in pursuit of a better story. You're just maybe going in the wrong direction. But we started this thing called Motor Retreat, and we said, okay, let's get some people together. Let's go ride motorcycles in an environment that is completely different than what they're used to. Let's remove them from their old patterns, their old environment. Let's spend enough time a week, say, and we'll meet up in the morning. We'll have a beautiful breakfast together, and we'll sit in satsang. We'll sit and share wisdom, and we would. Rhett, my friend who helped us start it, or started it with us, he made this whole journal, Motor Retreat journal, so we'd open it to a journal and be like, we do this, we do a on any Sunday email. So every Sunday we send out just some food for thought, like, hey, here's a story. Think about this. Here's a lesson. How does this apply to your life? And then we send some artwork attached to it that people can save as their screensaver and that kind of thing. And it's probably the most meaningful thing we do as a brand, other than our, in-person stuff. But, I think a lot of that started when we were doing that Motor Retreat, because we'd sit and talk about something in the morning, and it was just beautiful, man, because we'd talk about this thing and kind of introduce this concept while we're having breakfast. And it's like, no one needs to answer right now. You don't have to have an answer for this thing right now. We're just going to bring it up. And then we're going to have this breakfast, and then we're going to go together, but separately, which is something that's beautiful about riding motorcycles with your friends. You put your helmet on, you're in there all by yourself, right? But you're right next to your best friends. You're right next to people who are going through the same experience as you right now. And they're marinating the way they're marinating. And we put some steaks on that grill, right? And then we go ride through Bali and you're just going, the whole time you're going, life is not, it's not, this isn't pain right now. This is beauty. This is a gift. And this is a gift. And what if things were good? And I'm thinking through this thing with a lens and with an environment that says things are okay. It's hard to go a lot of places in Bali and be like, this sucks, right? Yeah. And so we would go do that and share that ride, and everyone would have we'd all be on the same ride, the same course, but everyone would have their own ride, because who knows what's going on in their helmet. And then we'd get to dinner time, after a full day, checking it out and eating at places and doing that, we get to dinner and we go, all right, has anybody arrived at any, and any thoughts? What went on in that helmet? And people are like, yes, everybody had something. Everybody was like, yes, this, and this. And at first, people are scared to say it. They're like, well, I don't want to say the wrong answer. And it's like, there's not a wrong answer, and it's just like permission. And we kind of come up in this world where we're tested and there's a right answer. And if we get it wrong, then we're stupid. If we got it right, then you're good, kind of thing. And so just going over there and bringing that up, sitting in meditation on your bike, in your helmet with, while you're being just entertained, while you think through this thing, it was super special. And what was so cool about it was all of those people after the week, they're like, well, I kind of want to wake up. I don't want to go back home and wake up and start scrolling, which is where I found the Motor Retreat, when I'm like, hey, do you want to do something different with your life? I'm like, yes. You like motorcycles? Yes. Like, okay, do you want to go to Bali or Thailand or whatever, and they're like, yes, and it requires such a investment from them. Obviously it costs money. It costs time. It costs what it's like flying from the US over, like it's a whole thing, Yeah. And they came ready for a change, and then they go home with that change, with this example, and then they go home and they're like, I want to wake up in the morning and have a meaningful conversation, or even just at least bring up a meaningful topic. And then I want to marinate, and then I want to have something at the end of the day and go, ooh, cool. Like, look at this piece of art I've made in my mind, in my soul,
It's like this ultimate disruption. It's you go into a completely new garden. It's like, hang on, I don't recognize any of these weeds here. It's like, I get to decide what goes in this one. And I'm not just like dealing with whatever was put there by life. I get to actually consciously decide what it is that will inhabit this space. And you get that disruption, and it is the greatest opportunity for innovation in your life. And even if you just bring a couple of things back that are fully, integrated and implemented, like, I'm going to start my day differently, because how it starts is how it goes. And I can do that. I can take that first 10 minutes in the morning, that first 15 minutes, and ascend, like, don't give in to the patterns that are there, because I can make new ones. I can make new patterns. I can't do it all at once, but I can absolutely make these new patterns. And that, I think the helmet time is a really fundamental point of that. Like, I know I've always grown up listening to my dad say, all right, I got to go out and get some helmet time, or Cam, you need to go get some helmet time. Like, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm upset about something. He's like, helmet time. And it really is that meditative state. And you have I love the individual shared journey of it.
Yeah.
Like, you are all in this collective experience, but shaped by whatever is inhabiting that helmet.
Yeah, man. And it's such an opportunity to reset it. And it's such I think people have a hard time with meditation, especially in what I saw was everybody, all of us, we choose, our mission statement as a brand is to contribute to the culture and community that inspire our existence. And so I've worked in branding and marketing, since 2010. That was like my thing until Go Fast, which, obviously extended into that. But when I, came up with that as a mission statement, I'm like, that actually is all of our mission statements. If any company, if their mission is not to contribute to the culture and community that inspire them to do their thing, then what is it? And when we look at that, we look at the culture and community that we were going to and beginning to influence. We looked and we saw this, hell yeah, brotherhood, where everybody had to act tough, and anybody acting tough is covering up where they're acting hard, because they're covering up with their soft, and it's like, what if we could offer these guys something different? And if you tell, you would tell Cork Wrench that he needs to meditate, I'll kick your ass, right? Like that kind of vibe, right? But you're like, hey man, why don't you go ride your motorcycle? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll ride my motorcycle. And then they feel better, and then you're like, hey, what if that was meditation? And they're like, oh, cool. We do this ride called Devilstone Run, which is where we just invite everybody that we meet over the year. And we say, hey, come check out our neck of the woods. We do Devil's Tower to Yellowstone. So we show them just all of Wyoming and kind of where we're from. And right away, right at the beginning of that run, I'm like, okay, all you guys who are, puffed up and acting tough and standing next to your black Harley, like, you can stop acting tough now. Because if you were tough, you wouldn't be acting like that. And I won't tell anybody. Yeah, stop. Yeah, we give them the weekend off, right? Like, hey, everybody, you don't have to do that. And what's so special, man, and so cool is we see these guys who are, there are a whole bunch of combat veterans that come out, and more, at this point, they probably make 20% of the run. There's about 200 people that sign. We cap the tickets at 200. And we always get a few more of that, because we usually say yes, when people run out, whatever. But bunch of combat vets, and to see those guys, instead of kind of showing up and seeing who could drink the most beer or who can do the biggest burnout or whatever, but they're sitting there and having a conversation about a vacation that they want to go on, or I don't know, just these simple things, or even I don't want to out some of them, but they're asking people if they look good. Yeah. They're asking their friends hey, how does this look? And I'm like, dude, that it brings tears to my eyes. I'm like, you're the toughest dude, and you're this combat vet and you're this hard Harley guy, but you also, you're seeking approval, and when you recognize and you actually get the permission to be like, hey, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to kind of explore this place. This is the culture we're living in. And this is that go fast, don't die culture. That this is that thing. And that is our contribution to that culture and community that inspired us to be.
Man, that's so beautiful. Like, I think about these boys, like, they're men, but we're also every age we've ever been. And like, there's these little boys that want to be seen, that want to be validated, that want to have their place and their purpose kind of secured and just made real. And there's, the hard exterior, it takes real strength to soften that. And once that softening occurs, life can be, you can invite softness, you can invite openness, and you can be a badass who is gentle as a Bambi, right? And like a lot of the badasses I think of are like, they have
That's the most
really beautiful, gentle spirit.
Yeah.
Like, you know all about it. Like the guys that get on the mat and roll around, like they're thoughtful and deliberate and calm.
Of course, man. Like that's it. That's, jujitsu. So, last night, Drew, our mutual friend Drew, who has the band called Satsang, which is the thing that we are doing now, which is a whole bunch of synchronicities that are beautiful. He got his brown belt last night. And if you don't know, the way it works in jiu-jitsu is it goes, you start with a white belt, you get that one for free. You start with white, and then you get blue. And then there's purple and brown and black. And the percentages drop off very heavily. Most white belts will never become a blue belt. Most blue belts will never become a purple belt. Most purple belts don't become a brown belt. And I think it gets a little better at that point when a lot of brown belts probably get to their black belt, right? So once you're kind of in brown, it's sort of like, yeah, dude, you're a lifer, And so Drew got his brown belt last night, which is so special. And it's so special not, so I was supposed to receive my black belt last night. I was kind of slated to. And, I talked to my professor and I said, hey, the black belt is something that means a lot to me. Belts don't mean anything, right? They're a little 2-inch thing. They only cover 2 inches of your ass. You got to cover the rest kind of thing. Anybody can put on any belt they want. You know what I mean? The colors don't mean anything unless it means something to you, right? Mm-hmm. It's like any piece of jewelry. It means nothing to someone else, but it might mean the world to you. Some ashes you might carry, that might be everything to you. For someone else, they don't. But belts, and so Drew got his brown belt, which means he's slated to become a black belt, and he will for sure. And I asked to extend to receive my black belt later because I want to earn it, because it's attached to so much more than just jiu-jitsu. And that's like, so returning to like these very violent men and women, like these very violent people and capable of so much violence, are the most peaceful because they're learning more than just techniques for breaking a body. They're learning about how to control that. They're learning about how to choose that. They're gaining confidence to, when you see people, since I started fighting, I started doing MMA and then got heavily into jiu-jitsu because I like the culture of jiu-jitsu a lot better. It's a lot more like exchange, and we're rolling and we're growing as people. We're helping each other grow. MMA is a lot of times a lot of ego. It's a lot of, I'm a fighter, I'm a bad dude kind of thing. I don't love that. But where was I? Help me out.
So you asked to push this black belt out later. So what is it? Because it's attached to so much.
Yeah.
What drew you to push that back?
So all of jiu-jitsu is tied to life. We're in there. What's so beautiful about jiu-jitsu and beautiful about motorcycles, we can find this. Well, it's what we were talking about. This might be helpful. Well, it depends on how much you're paying attention. Anything might be helpful, right? The patterns on that couch behind you, you could learn so much from if you just look at them. Yeah. And so, but jiu-jitsu, it has everything. It has all the drama. It has hilariousness. It has, adversity. It has these moments of friction where you have to make choice to stop or to fight, to flight, to fight, flight, freeze. You go through those things where you're observing your body react to things you would never have before. And then you're watching yourself make conscious choices to change those things. And that process Obviously you're learning new techniques and all of those things, but that process of going, oh, I'm going to choose that way instead of that way, because that is a better way for me. You're doing that over and over and over and over and over again. So what a black belt means to me and what jiu-jitsu means to most people who are good at it it's far beyond, so you meet someone who's a high level jiu-jitsu person, I immediately know a lot about them. Some of that depends on where they got their belt from, like, kind of what culture they're a part of, like what their lineage looks like. But I immediately know them, because I know myself, right? I know what I've gone through, and if they are in the same place that I am in, they have gone through that thing, because it's a meritocracy. So I postponed my black belt because I have a lot of things to work on that you get that once, and it's going to be very special for me. If I would have received it last night, it would have been a validation that my technique was good enough to wear this rank. But for me, I'm like, man, this means the world. This is something that most people who ever do jiu-jitsu will never, like 99%, probably more, whoever did jiu-jitsu, they'll never reach this rank. So I'm attaching, I've been writing in my journal. It says, no one gets out alive, live accordingly.
Yes.
And I've been writing it. We made these journals when at like the beginning of the pandemic, and it says, an infected mind is a far more dangerous pestilence than any plague.
Mm.
Anyway, I love these journals, but I started writing and I'm like, okay, what does this black belt mean to me? Because if I already have I can roll, right? Like I can do jiu-jitsu. If we fight and you're not very good at jiu-jitsu, I will probably find a way to dismantle your body. But that's not the point anymore, right? The point is, did I choose a shortcut when I should have done it the right way? Did I sleep in when I should have got up and I knew better? Did I choose this instead of that? These small things that change your life in such big, big, big ways? And you learn that in jiu-jitsu because, hey, if I just put a little more effort and I get my hip to here, I'm not going to have to fight that fight for the next 3 minutes. But if I'm lazy about it and I give that space there, you know what I mean? And you're constantly like, your opponent's not evil, but the evil that you leave, the space that you leave, right, is that evil thing, right? We have to represent that to each other. We have to give each other resistance to push off and to make those choices to become better, or to accept where we're at. And
man, that's a beautiful, just like analogy, like that my opponent's not evil, but that space can be, so if I did not choose to fill that space with that conscious movement, with that conscious effort, with finding that edge and dancing there.
Yes.
Like that edge can easily become a place of evil.
That's it. Absolutely. And it's the beginning, right? Because everything perpetuates itself. Right. So if I leave that evil there, it's going to immediately reflect. Everything's a mirror, so it's immediately reflecting that I am the type of person who chooses to leave evil on the table. And the evil says, well, I'm gonna self-preserve, and I also want to multiply, right? And in the same way, that choice to fill that space will choose to multiply. So becoming a black belt isn't about, I'm badass and I can submit everybody in here. Becoming a black belt is that evil that exists in me, that conscious choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing when I'm aware of which the right thing is. I'm going to choose that thing because that's a black belt move, and that other thing might be a white belt move. So for the next 6 months, like I said, we had that conversation two nights ago where I said, hey, I'm not ready for this belt. There are a lot of things in my personal life that I need to be fixing, and if I accepted this belt, I would not be doing a great service to myself outwardly, right? Everybody would see that belt. Everybody in the gym, everybody on Instagram, Facebook, and all the things, they're like, you're a black belt, man. And that's the only belt that really matters, right? Like when you grow up and you hear someone's a black belt in anything.
Yeah, so it's superhero status.
Yeah, right. It's pretty cool. And so everybody and even last night, it was really interesting. At the end of class, there was a cat who came over and he's like, hey, he went to the professor and he says, how come I didn't get my belt? And our professor, Will, he is a scary, scary man. It's just a giant dude, just shredded, probably weighs 220, and he is a black belt. He knows he doesn't need all that strength to dismantle your body, but he's got it. You're right. You know what I mean? So, anyways, he goes, Will, how come I didn't get my blue belt, man? And I don't know all the context of this. This is what I observed. So if he listens to this, I love you, dude. Good job. But and Will goes, what do you mean? Like, you're not ready. You were actually training for like 7 months, you're doing good, but I'll tell you when you're ready. You'll get it when it's time to get it. And he's like, well, I want it now. Like, I'll show you how good I am. He's like, all right. And he's like, why don't you bring me your belt? He comes over with his belt and he's like, look, I'm 2 stripes, I'm halfway there. Like I'm ready. And he takes the stripes off and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, let me show you how good I am, and so they start wrestling. And this is like after the belt ceremony, after everything's done, and they start going, and Will just kind of puts it on him, right? He's obviously not Will's caliber. Will puts it on him, and then as soon as Will's kind of done, he gives him another guy, and the other guy starts beating it. Like they start fighting, and he's still got a lot of energy. And then another guy, and this by now, like, he farted, and he's losing in control of his body. He can smell it, like you're watching him just like literally die. You know what I mean? Like actually begin the process, because he's been fighting for 20 minutes now against guys who are better than him. He's getting beat up. He's getting his ankle twisted. He's getting his neck choked. He's getting stretched out, all this stuff. And after about 30-40 minutes of that, switching opponents, another guy, fresh guy every couple minutes, another guy. He's like, can barely move. And my friend, one of my students who's from my place, he's like, hey, what's going on here? He's kind of looking at it like, is this this dude's being bullied? This isn't fair. And I'm like, no, what actually happened was he went, kind of like, he did something that was sort of disrespectful, right? Like he did something that was like, he kind of challenged the master. I'm like, he asked for this, this is actually really a beautiful thing. And we live in this place where actually that kind of thing lands really heavy for people, right? A lot of people can't hear that. They couldn't see that. And he went through this and he did the thing and he's like, all right, stop. And he's like, have you had enough? And he's like sitting there just like destroyed. He's like, stand up. And he doesn't want to stand up. And he's like, stand up. He stands up and he's got a blue belt behind him, and he promotes it right there, and it's like, I love being in a place where I love being in a meritocracy and being in a place where someone's like, hey, I'm looking not for what you want right now, but what you want the most. And if we could kind of adopt, if we could trade the thing we want right now for the thing we want the most, we would make different choices constantly. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that in life, when I tell you that, Cameron, like, let's, instead of what we want right now, what do we want the most? You understand that concept really, really well. Well, it was illustrated in this jiu-jitsu, right? In this place, in this space of growth, in this place where you can choose to grow. And if you want, and it's going to be more violent, right? You can choose to grow very fast, right? Like if you can walk down the street and you'll get to your, blue belt's about 4 blocks down there, and we'll get there in about 12 minutes. And nice leisurely, all we have to do is keep walking and you'll get there. Mm-hmm. And that's part of jiu-jitsu, right? And that's part of life. Or you can take his route and he's like, I want it now. He's like, if you want to get it now, you're going to have to sprint. And if you want to sprint, that's going to hurt your legs and your lungs are going to burn and you're going to want to puke. You might puke, but if that's what you want, let me set you up. Like, let me put you on the pace. Let me hit that treadmill and dial it up so that you get to where you want to go on time. And in the moment, he's suffering. He's going through the suffering, but he's going through this growth, right? And you can see this whole thing happening. And then he gets this blue belt. I'm like, dude, that was the most beautiful thing that I saw today, because this was so meaningful. And
it had all these hallmarks of growth as well, because there's like the humility and the humbling aspect, like to first, all right, well, you don't get what you want right now just
Yes.
because you want it. But then this person that's willing to get into the arena and stay there, to move through that. Yeah. And he's sitting there on his knees at the end, ultimately humbled, he's sitting in that humility. And that's where you get this gift of that accomplishment. It's a full arc.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You talk about, one of the reels that I saw that you post, you were talking about plant growth, and you're like, this plant is, you're talking about just like slow growth. It's growing slowly. And, you're talking about it's not comparing itself to other plants. It's just it's just doing its own growth. Do you remember that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's that quiet, inevitable growth. Yeah. It's you can't be, I look out at my garden as well, and I see vines that are creeping. I see palm trees that are, creating coconuts. I see just this beautiful expose of life that all works because of its contrast. It all works because of its, they work together through their individuality. They're sharing chemicals. One's taking the forest floor, the other's taking the canopy. They're swapping shadows. They're swapping photons. They're saying, we can work together because we're different. I'm not really concerned about your growth, but I'll create the space for it for sure.
Yeah.
But you do it at your own pace, and you manage your own growth. And we get the gift of deciding that growth. That plant is where it is because the wind carried it there. But we are the wind. We get to decide where we carry ourselves, where we plant our seeds.
And then, so when I walk into the jiu-jitsu gym, right, I see your garden, and I'm looking at this plant needs the right soil. It needs to plant itself in a place where it can plant roots, and it can grow. And I am not a plant expert, so so feel free to dial me in to trim me up. But it needs soil, right? And it needs sunlight, and it needs water. I know those things about plants, though I can't seem to keep them alive. There must be more. Maybe I'm sure you can teach me. But I see a jiu-jitsu gym and I go, okay, you're in the right environment, and the people around you are the water. You're going to get that from these people, and the people around you, the things around you, everything that's happening here, the challenge that you're going to face are going to be the sunlight. So if you just come in here, you're going to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what jiu-jitsu is about for me. It's not about, when I started fighting and doing MMA and all of that stuff, since then, I've not been in a fight, right? I've not been in a fight outside of organized combat. And it's because I'm confident in who I am in that arena, right? And there are a lot of people walking around and they're so insecure that they feel like they need to prove themselves at every step, right? And that's why people get in fights most of the time. It's not a thing where you go, this is justified and I must fight for it righteously. It's a thing where they're going, I feel less than. I need to prove that I'm more than through this thing that I've been told is what makes a man or whatever. And it's like, all of that, that's just insecurity. That's just pain. That's just fear. That's just sin and evil. Like that's what that is, expressing itself. And so when I see, and so you remove that when you go into jiu-jitsu, right? You're pushing all that out because I'm not fearful anymore because I have an understanding, and understanding pushes away fear. Fear doesn't want you to understand because it wants to perpetuate itself. I'm not insecure anymore because I'm secure because I've witnessed myself in growth. I've witnessed myself in victory in these moments, and I'm also humble because there's always someone who could beat me in there. There's always someone better than me, right? And they're all different plants and they all have their different things. So maybe that one beats you and you beat that one, but that one, beats that one, and you're like, it's all this beautiful thing. It's this environment for growth. So what a black belt means to me, has everything to do with where am I choosing the shortcuts? Where am I choosing, what 90% of what I know to be the right thing, where I should be choosing 100. And so the next 6 months for Brady is about growing into that black belt and being prepared to receive it, proving to myself that it's not a thing where you receive it and then you're done, right? That's the beginning of a stage, right? But I want to begin my stage by saying I'm committed to what this means, and what this means I'm going to build into patterns. So I've been writing stuff down and preparing that. And yeah, I think we all have a black belt. We all have a black belt that we're looking for. And we should look at what that thing is, what it means to become that black belt in our lives. Doesn't matter if you do jiu-jitsu, and go, what does it mean for me to become a black belt in my life, in whatever the thing I'm doing, and start making those little choices.
Man, what's so cool as well, though, is that like it was the conscious decision not to reach for it, but to grow into it. Like, oh, I cannot help but be a black belt now because that's what I am.
Yeah.
It's that the belt now fits me as opposed to me trying to fit the belt onto me.
Yeah.
Like, I am the perfect home for this belt because you've created the space for that on the multiple, dimensions of self, the multiple planes of existence and responsibility. And it's like in that moment where you decide that you are not ready, that there's work to do, that all the practice of outside the gym, off of the mat, that's where your black belt is coming in. That's where the work is to be done.
Yes.
And there will come a day where you go, oh shit, I'm a black belt in life.
Right.
Like now I'm worthy of this idea and thing that I've worked for.
This is I don't know if you can see this on the camera. I have this tattoo on my hand I got from one of Drew's songs. Actually, it says the work is never done. And that's the recognition, right? Like that is the black belt. When you get the black belt, you realize we have a shirt that says peace in the process, joy in the journey. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that that's the black belt, you know what I mean? Like I even had this conversation when we were in Thailand. I'm like, hey, so one way to find this change, right, is to buy to sign up for this retreat and buy a plane ticket and go halfway across the world, all the way across the world, and go to this beautiful environment and wake up in the morning and eat some food and get on some hard, like read something good, do something hard, do all of these things that you need to do, ride motorcycles, talk about it at the end of the day, go to sleep in a different environment and do that for a week. That's one way to choose change and make a radical change in your life. The black belt way would be to go, I could change my environment right here, just like right now. I could look and go, what are these things that are pushing on me? What is this resistance? And I can go, that's going to make me better. That's here to, I say everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. And if it's a lesson, then it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this cheesy line, right? But there's no way out of it, right? It traps you. Everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. And if it's a lesson, then it is a blessing. And you go, man, like everything is good. Everything is made for my growth, but I have to choose it. This might be helpful, right? But you have to choose to let it be helpful.
You have to have that. It's like, and at the end of the day as well, it is the most effective way of processing reality of like, this is good. This is all good for me. This is all good for me. To have any other approach of, of the why me, of the, this is too hard, of the, it's not fair. It's just not, there's no inherent truth to it. There's no inherent relevance other than the stories that are generated to substantiate that. But to decide that everything that's hard is good for me is the better way of processing this shit. It's the more exponential way. And it's the only, again, like nobody makes that out alive. So, if it is good, it has to be.
Yeah. You had another, this is, I think the first one that I saw, and you said, hey guys, this is it. This is your experience. The play button has been hit. So, I don't know if you think you're in practice mode, and you're waiting like, well, one day, right? The most recent line that we dropped is called, it's called On a Someday. And it says, the devil said someday, right? Another thing says, someday isn't a day on the calendar. And the whole thing is to go, the whole point is like, man, every time you say, what we're trying to like rebrand the word someday. So that when every time somebody says it, someday they go, oh no, big danger.
So which day, motherfucker?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. What day is someday? Exactly. When is someday?
The devil said someday. That makes me want to pick up the banjo.
That's what's up.
Makes me want to pick and ride a motorcycle, dude.
Let's go, dude. Let's go. Drew's got a motorcycle now, and
I'm so excited. I can't wait to come ride with you.
Yeah, we should do it, man. I have this big dream. It's kind of like my life. It's my someday, right? I want to do this thing. I came up with it just riding, and I called it what do I call it? The Royal, ROYL, the ride of your life. And I want to just start on one side of the country or start on one side of the world, something. And I want to do a couple of them in my lifetime. But what I want is this traveling circus of growth, this traveling circus of beauty and goodness. And so we start at one place and, we ride and we find a beautiful place to camp and hang out. And there's artists, there's music, there's food. Everyone's just contributing. I want to start a cult. I think I've always that's like the calling, right? Always it's like, I just want to start a cult and we're all just, everything's beautiful. There's this conscious utopia and everything's perfect. Right. And it's like, damn, nobody wants to be in my cult. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to keep working on it, until everybody's in it. But we could have this little mini cult, people would be down to be in a cult for a week. And we feed each other. And what that food looks like is whatever the food that we've been given to give to other people. So some people it'll be music. Some people it'll be whatever art theirs is. Some people it'll be education. Some people it's attention, because that matters. That really matters too. I think that's a big thing for people listening. They're looking for, this might be helpful. They're thinking about it. Sometimes the best thing you can give to the world, the best thing you could give maybe to Cameron and is your attention. And that might serve you as well. Anyway, I want to do this ride of your life. And I would love to just, the beautiful people that I've met along the way and be like, okay, hey, we're doing this thing. And it's this traveling circus of beauty, of beautiful people.
Dude, I'm down for that. That's a kind of cult I want to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah.
Like a traveling circus of growth. I'd get the old man coming too. He'd love that.
Yeah. Maybe there's
that's a closer someday than it might seem. Like that's entirely possible. That's something active.
And we're practicing with Devilstone, so we do Devilstone, and that's a 3-day thing across Wyoming. So when is that? It's Labor Day weekend.
All right, I'll try and make it to next Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
I won't be back this year, but next year I will be. I'll probably have a little baby with me as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you are, I'm mixing up my stories. Are you married?
Fiance.
Congratulations. That's awesome. And she is a psychologist?
Yeah.
What a beautiful place of growth you've created for yourself, huh?
And it's a beautiful arrangement.
Because you're this man with your eyes open, observing and paying attention and watching constantly. And, the way that your brain talks to your heart and your heart talks back to your brain. And then they send that to your mouth, and what comes out obviously is what is lighting the world on fire. People are so stoked. And then you have this person across from you who, has an understanding of that as well and can go, yeah, this is interesting. Might teach you all of the time,
Oh yeah. But also she'll happily, say like, yo, chill out, dude. Like, you don't have to be a visionary.
Yeah.
Do the laundry. Like, why have I asked you 7 times to do this?
So that's the black belt stuff, right? Because this is what I'm talking about. Because I don't do the laundry, right? Because I'm like, I'm out here I can't do the laundry. I'm trying to witness a beautiful sunset. This is better than Disney World could ever do. And it's like, okay, but the laundry needs done. It's like, actually, the most beautiful thing I might be able to do right now would be to do the laundry because I'm in service to you and our connection is beautiful. Like the black belt thing is just being in pursuit of what that thing is and being. Have you read Be Here Now? Familiar with Be Here Now?
I don't know. I don't think I have read that. No. Here, let me put that down.
Wild book. The Transformation. Dr. Richard Albert. Baba Ram Dass. Look at this.
Oh.
It is just the wildest. Oh. It is just the wildest piece of literature you will ever come across.
Oh, that's just beautiful. Oh man. For anybody listening, which is everybody, check out Be Here Now. That's the most beautiful slaying of ideas and words and image.
I'm going to send this to you. You give me your address. I'm going to send this to you.
All right. Thank you.
Because I love what you're doing, man. I'm so stoked to have I'm not kidding. Like, a month ago, I came across your stuff and was like, I like this, more of that, please. And also like, that's just something that everybody who's listening, which is everybody, whenever you hit that follow button or continue to follow, like you're saying, I would like more of that, please. And we went through this thing with, Instagram is this wild thing that has changed it's this other world that we live in for a lot of people, for a lot of us. And it is the garden. It is a garden that we walk through. And so if they would just pay attention, to what you're looking at and going, is this fruit? Is this soil, sunlight, or water for me? Is this contributing to my growth, or is this holding me where I'm at? And the app itself wants your undivided attention at all times, right? And that will not serve you. And there is a lot of beauty in that, but you have to be conscious in making your choices in what's going in and what's going out. This thing is a diet,
Mm-hmm. And yes, it is.
You have to be aware of that diet, and you, my friend, are a good fruit. Yeah.
Oh. Damn, dude. Well, game recognized game. Fruit recognized fruit.
Fruit recognized fruit, dude.
We're out here tending to things.
We're doing it. And that's what's up, man. I mean, yeah. We gotta do this again. We gotta chat some more.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Like you were spitting some serious flow. It was a beautiful thing to witness. Like, really, that was a beautiful conversation. So much wisdom, so much growth in that. Like, where can people find this newsletter?
So if they go to gofastdon'tdie.com and they go to the On Any Someday tab, it's free to sign up. We send it every week. And the way it works is Rhett and I get together every Sunday, man. And we're like, so what's going on? What's going on with you? And then we have this intentional kind of check-in time. And sometimes he's got something prepared. Sometimes I have some idea, and we just kind of talk through it, and he'll create a draft, and then we'll run through it and we'll have these discussions. And then we'll go, actually, what happened for me this week was last weekend, there was a jiu-jitsu tournament. It was the first time I've actually competed. The reason I competed was because I had this black belt on deck. And I'm like, dude, I have not been taking jiu-jitsu very seriously. And when I say jiu-jitsu, I mean far beyond jiu-jitsu. I have been not as present in my life and in the story that I want to tell as I wish. I'm letting things happen to me rather than being the thing that happens. I'm floating instead of choosing. And so I made a choice, and I said, I'm going to do this jiu-jitsu tournament. At this jiu-jitsu tournament, there's this guy who's 75. He's a 75-year-old white belt. And the beauty, man, of I just told you, 99.9% of the people who ever do jiu-jitsu will never reach their black belt. Well, a lot of people here we talked about hope in the beginning of this. We talked about the less time you have, the less hope you have. And the less hope you have, the more faith you have that you can do it. And the less faith you have, the far less likely that you're ever going to take that first step. This man is taking his first step in a lifelong pursuit, in an infinite pursuit, right? At 75. And I'm like, it's so beautiful. And he got his ass kicked, you know?
Yeah.
He lost twice. He's just like, he's so uncomfortable. But in that discomfort, he is still growing at 75 years old, choosing to be a white belt, choosing to be humble, choosing to tell a new story at 75. So if anybody who is listening, who is everybody, if you think it's too late, you know, if you think that like, oh, I wish I would have this, I wish I would have that, you know, best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. Next best time is right then now.
Right now, dude. And like, you know, maybe you don't need hope as much when you're just present and doing it for the sake of itself. It's like, there's no expectation that I get these belts. It's like, I'm here because I wanted to be here. What hope do I have? Like, that's hope's future based. I'm now.
And to be here now. And the belts don't mean a thing. You know what I mean? The belts mean as much as you decide, you know? So this man, to me, I'm sitting here with a black belt on deck saying, I'm not ready for the black belt. And this man is displaying black belt behavior to me.
Yeah.
Because he is choosing growth. You know, he is choosing to not only to go do jiu-jitsu as a practice and to do that. He's in that tournament, man. That's where people go to kill. They go, if I go my hardest, how does this go for the other guy, right? Like, we're out there doing that, and he's doing it. And I'm blown away. So anyway, our On Any Someday, right, which we thought, well, let's tell this story. You know, let's tell a story of the old fisherman or this or whatever. We're like, actually, we need to tell a story about this guy right here. And so we just put something out there, and then we put some artwork, and, you know, people can save it, and it doesn't cost them a thing. And, you know, we want to contribute. We want to be a culture. We want to contribute to the culture and community that inspire us to continue. And when we're not inspired to continue, we're going to stop.
Yeah. All right. Dude, well, I'm going to drop links to those things in the description below. I want to contribute to the culture that is inspiring me, and I'm inspired by all of this. I am an easily inspired person, but that's besides the point. That's because life is inspirational.
Yeah. You're doing it, man. You're doing it, and I'm you know, I was so stoked to hear, you know, that you're from around here, that you had roots, you know, where we got roots out here. I'm like, man, because it's a beautiful thing coming from a small town, because you really have a unique environment where you can go, I can make a big change because I'm in a small place. Mm-hmm. You know, and if you talk to one person, well, that's one of how many? 1,800, you know, 10,000 or whatever. And sometimes we start looking at things like it's 1 in 2 million. It doesn't make a little bit of difference. Why would I do anything? I'm just gonna flow with whatever. And so you have that seed of belief, and then you start doing things, and the things that you're doing, the things that you're putting out into the world, and the way that you're doing it, man, it's beautiful. And I think the most beautiful thing, dude, is I believe you. You know, because there's all kinds of trash out there where people are trying to say the thing that will get them to the place. And the bummer thing about all that is when you get to the place of proving someone wrong, or you finally did it so that you could be the man, you don't want to be there. You're like, dang it, I used all this time. And that's a lesson, right? So it's a blessing, right?
It's a blessing.
Yeah. Anyway, dude, I'll stop, man. I super appreciate the time, man. I appreciate the energy, and yeah, dude, I'll get your address and I'll send you this book, and yeah, let's kick it again sometime.
Hell yeah, dude. Big love. Thank you so much. This was a lesson and a blessing.
Amen. For me too, man. Thank you for the time.